Okay, we are back for our final segment. This has been an exciting day as I spin the plates and crank the levers in the background, and I'm going to toss it straight over to Nicole.
Roderick, you've been doing great, and I know we all enjoyed seeing that clip from Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. We have a guest on next who hopes to go to Washington and clean things up. I'm going to let our special guest, LaDonna Curzon, host of Sarah Palin Radio, introduce our last guest, and we're so grateful that LaDonna could join us. We love her radio show. Welcome, LaDonna.
Thanks, Nicole. It's great to be a part of Grizzly Fest. Our theme today is busting corruption, and our next guest is no stranger to exposing and terminating corruption when he sees it. Scott Beason is a state senator in Alabama who's volunteered to wear a wire for the FBI and assisted the prosecution in a broad vote-buying investigation that led to the indictments of 4 of his colleagues in the Alabama legislature and 7 others involved in the state's gambling industry. Scott is now running for Congress, taking on the 10-term incumbent Congressman Spencer Bachus, who happens to be one of the members of Congress cited in Peter Schweizer's book and a 60 Minutes broadcast for insider trading violations. Welcome to Grizzly Fest, Scott.
Hey, LaDonna, it's good to be with y'all.
I see you've made a name for yourself in Alabama, standing up against casino operators who are trying to buy off state legislatures. And this is very similar to what happened with Governor Palin in Alaska involving corrupt lawmakers and big oil. What was it like cooperating in that investigation?
Well, number one, it's definitely not a fun thing. It's not something you would just say, hey, I want to do that someday. But when it became apparent that some things were going on that shouldn't have gone on, you always wonder if when you're a legislator and anybody's been involved in politics, you'll have these individuals they'll take one position and they'll say, I'm never going to be for that. And about 2 weeks later, the vote comes up and magically they've changed their mind. And you just wonder, what happens? It's like there's these parallel universes. There's this side of things that you don't know. And when it became apparent to me that some threats were being made to people, and I went to the authorities and talked to them, and they asked me if I would be involved in the investigation, you realize that is a very big thing, and it's not fun. It's going to be tough on your family, especially if it all goes to trial. And we've been through all those things now, but I just thought it was the right thing to do, and that's what we tell people we would do when we run for office. It's just unfortunate that a lot of elected officials turn a blind eye to things like that.
Well, good for you, and thank you for doing the right thing. We need more people like you. What's happening with the trial?
Well, they've just gone through their second round. The first trial was back in the spring of 2011. They had the retrial, and they closed. The prosecution closed it. All these things are up to the jury. There were, I think, 4 people pled guilty. The rest of them went to trial. It was kind of hung up the first time around, but they came back the second time, and I guess we'll find out in the next.
Well, good luck with that, and again, thank you for doing the right thing. And as you know, you're taking on someone running for Congress. You're going to be taking on Spencer Bachus, and that's no small task. I mean, here he is. He's not only the senior member of the Alabama congressional delegation, but he's also chairman of the influential House Financial Services Committee. But he's in some serious trouble. The New York Times and the Washington Post, they just recently reported that he's under investigation by the House Office of Ethics for insider trading violations. Those are those violations that were turned up in Peter Schweizer's book, and that was featured in 60 Minutes. So my question to you is, do you think Speaker Bonner should ask Bachus to resign as chairman of the House Financial Services Committee since he's being investigated?
Well, I think at least he should ask him to just step down until the investigation's over. I think it's interesting to note that our congressman had said that, well, it's nothing. These charges are just being written and made up by some author, and just don't worry about them. They're not real. And then we find out just a couple of weeks ago that there's an official investigation going on. And it sounds to me like it is much more than just someone alleged it in a book. The funny thing was, our response here was, well, if the person who wrote the book, Schweitzer, is not being accurate, then why don't you sue him, Congressman? But,
right.
you're a lawyer, you used to be a lawyer, you know how this goes. But I think, the old saying is where there's smoke, there's fire, and there is a lot of smoke here. I think these are very serious allegations. I have always felt that Congress was supposed to obey the same laws that we do. When the Republican Revolution kind of occurred in, 94, that was one of the first things they passed. They passed a law that specifically said that Congress would have to obey the same rules that other people do. So I think if you're trading on inside information, on non-public information, that's a serious offense. And on top of that, say there was nothing illegal. He specifically bet against the American people. He bought options that said if the market went in the tank, he was going to make big profits. I would have felt better about it if he had came home to the district and said, hey, guys, everybody's not supposed to know, but get out of the market. It's about the tank. I would have been okay with that, but that's not what he did. He profited himself.
That was really pretty upsetting when I read that in the book. I was like, oh, that's just very distasteful.
Oh, you'll love this part. His defense is, well, everyone knew the market was going to tank. And my response is, really? Well, the McCain campaign apparently didn't know it. All these mutual fund managers and pension fund managers didn't know it, and a lot of people who lost a lot of their life savings and their children's college funds, they didn't know it. So apparently it wasn't so public after all.
Well, have you thought about using a part of the 60 Minutes piece as part of a TV ad campaign?
Well, we are getting as much out as we can. As you know, when you run against an incumbent, especially an entrenched incumbent who has been a chairman of a very, very powerful committee, it is very difficult to raise money. And we are reaching out to anyone we can. We have some good television ads prepared. We need more dollars to get those things up. But we're doing all the grassroots stuff that happens when incumbents are removed. We're working with Tea Party groups. We've got a lot of excitement out there. I'm actually sitting in a car in a supermarket parking lot because a bunch of my volunteers and myself are going door to door today. It's 60 degrees, beautiful, sunny here, and we're having great response in one of the counties that he should be strong in, but we're doing very well.
Well, where could people go on the Internet to connect up with your campaign, if they want to donate or find out more about the race?
Well, they need to go to scottbeason.com, and that's B as in boy or B as in Bama, scottbeason.com or Scott Beason for Congress. We bought every different differentiation of that, and you can get there, and you can learn a little bit more about myself. You can volunteer to work in the campaign if you're nearby, or you can give donations. And what we're telling people is no donation is too small. $10, $20, $50, those things go a long way when you're talking about hundreds, if not thousands of people. And it's so important, not just for this race in Alabama. We have to save the country. And I know that's what's been talked about all day on Grizzly Fest, and we have to save the country.
Absolutely.
And we've got to have people in Congress who will help turn the ship around. It's not enough to campaign like you're going to, but I have the record to prove that I absolutely expect things to happen. I don't mind stirring the pot, and we've got to do that. And if we don't elect congressmen all across the country and congresswomen who will do that, then we deserve to get the mess that we've got right now.
Let me ask you this. Bachus claimed that Governor Palin cost the Republicans control of the Senate by endorsing Christine O'Donnell and Sharon Angle. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that's just a typical response from the establishment sort of crowd. My thing is, Congressman Bachus or Bacchus, however you want to say it, my thing is he and his cohorts are absolutely responsible for the huge debts we have now. They started it back during President Bush's campaign or time of office, and they voted for those budgets over and over and over. If they wanted to have a balanced budget, they could. They have put us in the financial straits we're in. They are responsible for the tremendous slowdown in the economy. He was on the financial services when Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were given such tremendous rain and helped bring the housing market crashing down. And then he wants to come back and attack Governor Palin and say it's her fault we lost the Senate. We lost the Senate and we lost control of the House at one time because Republicans did not do what they told the voters they would do. They got up there and acted just like the other people in power, and all they cared about was sitting in those seats and preserving those seats, and they were not trying to fix the country.
Yeah, and I think that he tried to walk that back a little bit, but, once you ring that bell, you can't unring it. So, too bad for Bachus. Are there any indications that Governor Palin might endorse you, or maybe Sarah Pack, her Political Action Committee, they might make a contribution to your campaign?
I really don't know. We've had some people reach out. I've not spoken with the governor personally. I would love to see that happen. I think it would be a tremendous boost to our campaign. It would just put a lot of credibility in the campaign, and just the attention that would be brought if that occurred would show a lot of people that this really is a pivotal race for the country in general, and I would definitely welcome that.
Who and what organizations have endorsed you so far?
Well, we have a lot of the local people, like I said, the local Tea Party groups that can get involved, and they don't do necessarily official endorsements, but this is definitely a grassroots kind of thing. The frustrating thing is when you run against an incumbent, if they have happened to vote okay through the years, and that's the real demarcation here, it's not okay just to sit in that seat, and if something rolls across in front of you, vote yay or nay, depending on it. We have got to be active. So, like a great example, no one could probably be more pro-life than I am. Got a great pro-life record here in the state legislature, but the national groups just really have a hard time sometimes going against an incumbent, even though I would be better for the long term for their cause, and they know that. It's just the establishment is all built around preserving incumbents. So ours is really a normal person's, everyday American, middle-class folks trying to save the country kind of campaign.
Are you getting some Tea Party support?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. We've got Tea Party groups, and we have a lot of small Tea Party groups across Alabama who played a huge role in our takeover of the state legislature. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but Alabama's legislature had not been run by Republicans in either chamber for 136 years.
Oh, my gosh.
and since Reconstruction. And 2 years ago, for the first time, the Alabama legislature flipped both houses, and we have super majorities now in both houses. And the Tea Party was a big part of that. We have countless small local Tea Party groups that meet regularly. They're not, they don't necessarily talk to each other. They're not involved. They're not under one big umbrella. But those people decided that they had to put their feet where their mouths were and get out and campaign for folks, donate to folks, make phone calls, and we have a number of those groups helping us in this effort because they want to see a change. And I tell them straight up front, if I don't get the job done, put me in there. If I don't do it, fire me and get somebody who will. But I'm pretty sure they're going to be very satisfied with the kind of representation I give them.
And if you can remind them that Bachus supported TARP and Cash for Clunkers?
He did. TARP, Cash for Clunkers. The one that amazes me the most is one your listeners may not have even heard of before. It was something called the Global Poverty Act. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Well, it didn't make the headlines anywhere, but the Global Poverty Act, Spencer Bachus and a person from Washington State were the lead sponsors on this thing. It was back in 2007. It was $840-something billion, almost $1 trillion in foreign aid, more foreign aid than we were already spending. This is an additional amount.
I'm sorry, Scott.
Are we ready to run out of time?
Excuse me for cutting in. I think we're coming up here on this hard break, but I want to thank you for being part of Grizzly Fest.
Well, thank you very much. If folks will go to scottbeason.com, I'd appreciate their help. And thank y'all for letting me be on here today, and y'all have a great one.
Well, good luck on the campaign trail.
Thank you. We're hard at it.
Now, back to you, Nicole.
Oh, terrific. Thank you, LaDonna, and we look forward to hearing your conversations with additional congressional and senatorial candidates on Sarah Palin Radio. You always do a great job with your interviews.